In 20 years someone will ask what was COVID lockdown like, how will you answer? I made a metric fuck ton of money delivering pizzas on empty streets. COVID lit something in me and I've been gassed up ever since. I started mowing lawns out the trunk of my '03 Accord. Then I learned how to climb and properly remove trees. I have a big OL truck and trailer and a ton of equipment now. I was an alcoholic server/bartender before and super depressed. 2 of my teenage kids have moved in with me and I'm in the best shape of my life. AHH, the great toilet paper shortage of the 20s, is how I'll begin. Surreal mostly. The bizarre determinations on who could be considered an essential worker. My son was considered an essential worker. He was a teenager working his first job in fast food. Weird. Lots of anxiety, but it was also kinda peaceful. I count myself very lucky that I had a stable job that I could do from home and that I owned a house with a nice outdoor space. Lots of Zoom calls in my underwear. Asterisk, it was the best of times, it was the worst of times. It was the cleanest of times, it was the dirtiest of times. It was the quietest of times, it was the loudest of times. It was the funnest of times, it was the boringest of times. Asterisk. I'll be surprised if anyone asks. When it did strike, my brother, who studied infectious diseases while in college, was astonished. He'd never thought to ask our 4 grandparents about the Spanish flu. They were all young adults when it hit. Alcoholism. No difference for me. Work was somehow considered essential. We make cabinets, drawers, and I think we had maybe 3 to 4 orders for the COVID tents during the lockdown. 1 day of work to be considered essential for the whole lockdown. I am an introvert/gamer and just bought my house, so didn't really have need to go anywhere. Okay, one difference, Walmart closing at 8 p.m. meant I couldn't go grocery shopping after work anymore. Everyone got fat and social media got stupid. Quiet. It was pretty awful. I was working 72 to 80 hours a week on a nursing home COVID unit. I normally worked critical access ER as a travel nurse, but the medical world was falling apart and I went where the most desperate of help was needed. I would take 1 day off a week to do my laundry in the hotel where I was staying and do Walmart pickup for my groceries and supplies. I didn't go home. I didn't want any of my family or friends to possibly get this virus that had already killed and disabled so many. I did that for several months. So many died, alone, without their loved ones. We were so busy trying to care for the sick, but I always had guilt when someone died without staff there. It crushed my soul. Then I too became sick with COVID. I laid quietly in my hotel room until I knew I had to go to the ER. They gave me a liter of 4 fluid and said if I got any worse, to come back. The ER doctor pulled me aside as I was leaving and told me I needed to get home and get to a bigger hospital. I tried. It took me 2 days to pack up my gear and I almost remember driving home. I had my daughter set up a quarantine space in our house. It was amazing. The day after I got home I was admitted to the hospital for 12 days in respiratory failure related to COVID pneumonia infection. I don't know how I didn't die. That was sheer will, and knowing that my daughter still needed me and I didn't have enough life insurance and I didn't have my house and other issues in the right arrangement. They made my 23-year-old son mimpo. Crying face. I didn't die like I was expected to, but instead spent 10 months at home trying to recover. I had taken a hard neuro hit as well as hard respiratory damage from COVID. For 3 months I couldn't handle light of any sort. Noise had to be minimal and all food tasted wrong. I couldn't say the words for what I was trying to say. I didn't know if it would ever get better. Slowly it did. I never got to go back to ER nursing. I did find hospice nursing. It fixed my heart and given my soul hope that we can do better if another pandemic ever rolls around. I now have things set up for my family in case of my death. I don't get to do anything overly stressful or crazy either. My mind is a little darker now, and if I think too hard on it, I like humans in power a little less and people unwilling to protect themselves to protect others even less than that. Lockdown was awful for some of us, but it was absolutely necessary, and we hopefully learned better ways to deal with it when it comes again. And it will come again. 2 words. Tiger King. Wouldn't know. I worked in the hospital morgue for the whole lockdown. I hoped not to catch the incurable blood clotting disease that killed many of my clients for $19/HR. I was called a hero and an essential worker while I couldn't afford to buy a house. Like some weird collective psychosis. Like we collectively all lost our sanity for a while, but with good reason. The 20 lockdown was a weirdly magical time that was quiet and peaceful, but filled with anxiety. The early 21 lockdown was an absolute nightmare of depression and a slowly decreasing grip on reality. I did a lot of walking. It is hard to lose a family member and not even be able to have a funeral. Depressed about being locked up. I was an essential worker. It was the year I understood the depth of how little Americans care about each other. Nothing really changed. I still had to go to work while most people got to stay home and chill. It was like all your friends and you being grounded at the same time. I worked in a nursing home, so I was at work every day. It was hell. I was a retail manager for Walmart. No lockdown, no free unemployment money, no government help. Constantly understaffed, overworked, and exhausted. We were essential but never got any benefit or recognition. We were physically accosted by people who didn't want to wear masks, but it was a state OSHA ordinance that they were kicked out. We got no choice but got demanded. We got yelled at for toilet paper and other essentials that were just gone. No suppliers had anything and customer frustrations were taken out on the retail management. So yeah, it was grand. Quiet, relaxing, and scary for the first bit, then it was just peaceful. I'd tell them about how the mayor of Chicago told people if they left their house they'd be jailed, but then she went and got a haircut. Fucking depressing. I don't want to say that I wasted up to 4 years of my life, cause I didn't, but I felt not even real. I think I dissociated the whole thing. I too remember how peaceful it was. The air outside smelled different. In beginning for Canada, there was a type of cooperation which was incredible. After a few months, invasive social media crept in and changed everything. People went from communal to factional in the span of a few months. I was a student nurse at the time and we were asked to volunteer to support the qualified nurses. It was terrifying and absolute hell. It was pretty much a test run of how fast we will turn and completely destroy each other if faced with an actual disaster. By all accounts, this is a small change of quality of life. When the next hits, it will be even worse. It was great. It got me into modding my consoles and pirating video games. It was quiet for the most part. With everyone being home, there was an uptick of people making banana bread, and bread yeast was hard to come by. I'm gonna be real with you, Chief, I'll be lucky to make it another 20 years. The happiest 10 months of my life. I got paid to go do outdoor fun stuff like crabbing, fishing, hunting, hiking, picnics, etc. I almost feel guilty for how amazing lockdown was for us. My marriage was struggling because we had no time to work through issues and enjoy each other's company. We ended up doing Zoom counseling for a couple weeks and it was exactly what we needed to rekindle everything. We ended up having a baby in 2021 and I'm pregnant again now, and there's just no way that would have happened without lockdown. We already had 2 kids and we were just super busy and overburdened and disconnected. COVID was a godsend for us. We didn't personally know anyone who got sick, our kids thrived, we fixed up our home and our garden. I wish we could live it all over again just once more, but without the loss of lives and hardships of others. We all claimed things would be different after we got out of it. We would value health, community, and connection. Then the corporations got worse. Still had to work and deal with the shithead public. A time for rebirth and growth, but before that happened I was drinking 20 plus a day and actively ruining my life. 2 years sober now. Strange. It was an extended holiday for many. Meanwhile, a huge chunk of the general population got labeled as essential workers and they had to carry on as usual. I think COVID showed us which jobs were genuinely essential to keep society afloat. It was a difficult year on a social level, but on an environmental level it was a rare opportunity to observe what happened to the planet when humans stopped, and it was a better quality of environment.